most of the customer experience efforts we see right now that are led by CIOs are about how do we make the contact center more efficient with AI, with software, et cetera. So we're tying those together.
When AI first came out at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a quote. It said, a car goes 1,000 miles an hour. We gave it to a 16-year-old with no license and no instruction book.
Agentic AI, what it presents is automation is key. So at the end of the day, if you don't automate your processes, you're not going to get efficiency and productivity out of that.
Everybody in this room has had terrible experiences calling either their cell phone company, their bank, insurance. That's your at least entry level in terms of what I do, and then it's measured based on how quickly can we deploy it.
And remember, most of us are writing code right now for Gen Zs, which we probably don't understand. They're our kids, right? We don't understand them at home, we don't understand them at work.
Tech has reshaped our reality, redefining how we live, work, and connect. And driving this revolution, real people with bold ideas. Welcome to the Bridgecast, where host Scott Kinka has in-depth discussions with the brightest minds in tech. Together, they tackle the future of work, innovation, entrepreneurship, and navigating the new realities of AI and hybrid work. These conversations will give you the insights and strategies to stay ahead, both in business and life. The Bridgecast is a service of Bridgepoint Technologies. As the nation's leading tech advisory and consulting firm, Bridgepoint is disrupting the way businesses make and manage their technology and customer experience investments. We invite you to experience the better way, the Bridgepoint way. Now, here's your host, Scott Kinka.
Well, here we are, team, and welcome to another episode of the Bridgecast. We're thrilled to have you with us today for the listeners at home and for the live studio audience we have. Is there a live studio audience here in the room? Fantastic. Our live studio audience, for those of you who might be listening on Apple or YouTube or Spotify, are members of an organization called SIM, or the Society of Information Management. This is the New Jersey chapter. Can I get a whoop whoop for New Jersey in here? All right, there we go. For our listeners, and please in the room don't boo me, I'm from the Philadelphia area. So I understand, it's okay. It's hard to win, I know. But anyway, that's good. We had to get that out of the way. Today what we're going to do is just a practical discussion with a group of some of the smartest people that I've met in the last couple of weeks, certainly in this room, to talk a little bit about what is on the mind of IT leaders related to AI. I think largely, many cases, we get the tech. We understand what it's trying to do. The challenges that we have as IT leaders is exactly how to deploy, how to meet a line of business requirement, how to make the CEO happy, how to return and effectively an ROI on the capital that we're investing inside the business. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on that today. Our panelists, to the question that we had earlier, are some of the smartest minds that we know around AI. Let me see, this accidentally happened, or maybe they already knew what the slide was going to be. That's fantastic. But I love the way that worked out. First, and he's been with you at SIM before, so some of you should know who he is, but Gary Sorrentino, who's the global CIO of Zoom. Gary, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Gary Sorrentino, global CIO for Zoom, been in technology 45 years, retired once, waiting for another one to happen, but so great to be in technology now because we are finally, with AI and other things, we're changing the way people work, and so I don't want to miss that in my career, and so that's why I'm still plugging every day.
And just I have to say this, Gary was at the Zoom sales kickoff all week, and it technically, I guess it's not even over yet. That it ended late.
Not even over yet.
It's still going on right now. We managed to pull him out of that. You took a 1 a.m. flight overnight to get here. So this afternoon when I was looking for him, they're like, he's upstairs asleep. So thank you, Gary, for being here. Thank you, appreciate that. Next to Gary is Jim Marron. He is the regional AI sales director for Talkdesk. I won't steal his thunder on who he is or what he does. Jim, tell us a little bit.
Yeah, Jim Marron, been at Talkdesk for 6 months only, been in the AI space for 4 years. Prior to that, I was climbing the corporate ladder at Oracle, everything I thought I wanted to be and doing all the right things. And I left to join a crazy startup AI company. We had tremendous success. And that leads me to this crazy AI world. So I'm happy to talk to everybody here. Great crowd.
Yeah, fantastic. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim. And then I'm going to get this, and we practiced it. Yes. Yalim Eristiren. I did it? Yalim Eristiren. Did I get it this time?
Absolutely.
Very close. All right. So Yalim is the managing director for SESTEK. They are a Turkish company. He's running the North American division. So, and you're in Boston now, but tell us a little about you.
Yeah, I've been in the industry, technology industry for over 25 years now. I work at Siemens, Intel for 12 years, and recently joined SESTEK for 2.5 years ago, and trying to drive this adoption on the AI side in the North America region. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Thank you all for being here, guys. I appreciate it. So what I like to do is just start with a little bit of table setting, just so that we have a context by which to set the conversation. I recognize at the top of that slide says 2024. You recognize that the analysts don't put out their 2025 data until about halfway through the year. So let's just call this pertinent. This is from Infotech, who is a research partner of ours. Top 5 priorities for CIOs. This was a survey, not their thought process, and I just want to step through them. Augment the business with generative AI. I just realized that there's generative AI working on the bottom of this, but I'm not going to play with it. Or at least AI that's doing the speech recognition for me. Right-size AI governance, update vendor risk assessments, exponentially increase innovation, or exponentially improve customer service. All right, now, you may or may not argue with those, but if I, just highlighting here, at least 3, potentially 4 of them, of these top 5 things are all largely bound up into this same topic, right? The 2 are clearly AI. Most of the customer experience efforts we see right now that are led by CIOs are about how do we make the contact center more efficient with AI, with software, et cetera. So we're tying those together. So with all that said, first, Jim, I'm going to come to you first. You talk to CIOs all day. Right, wrong, indifferent, aged out, like what are you hearing? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, I don't want to steal everybody's thunder with agentic AI because that's the hottest topic right now. But I think for the most part, they hit the nail on the head. The one thing that's not on here that wouldn't be necessarily a topic is just like, who do you trust when it comes to AI? I go to so many different conferences, we all do, and you guys all do too, and we have so many different conversations. It's what happens is there's a line of business that gets basically assigned an assignment, right? To go after, you have to have a certain percentage of AI in your line of business, or automation, whatever the case is. And when they say automation, it's the hottest technology. What do you have? Gen AI, agentic AI, whatever the case is. These folks and these people don't know how to solve their business problems with AI. So what happens is their guard goes up, they lose trust, and everybody's saying the same thing. Agentic AI, Gen AI, we do this, we do that. Very similar talk track, especially if you don't know the business of AI. So my approach at Talkdesk, and for the record, at Talkdesk, we're a CCaaS platform, right? I'm on the conversational AI side of the CCaaS. So think of a contact center. Think of everything we do is to enhance the customer experience. So we have underpinnings, AI, we have our own NLP, NLU that's driven with our own technology. We bring in a third party, LLM, and we have out-of-the-box solutions to make conversations really smart, really seamless, really efficient. And the whole end goal is we can measure ROI. ROI is such an overused word too. But in the contact center, when it comes to the AI space, you can actually measure it. You can know exactly what your cost per conversation is. And with our technology, we can drive that down between 50 and 80%. That's my business, that's what I do. I'm in the ins and outs of that every day. What happens is these folks in the contact center, for this example, because I'm in customer experience, they don't understand AI like a CIO would. So it's our job to unify everybody within the company, right? If we have an evaluation, you have CIOs, you have marketing, you have obviously customer experience, different lines of business that are curious on different things. My job to unify them, explain to them, and be a trusted consultant on my Talkdesk can achieve their goals.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll get a little bit more into one of those parts of the conversation that I found particularly interesting in our prep call, which is around ROI, and who's responsible for that right now, right? Because AI is kind of being thrust on IT, but in many cases without the use case. So who's got to drive the dollars? We'll come back to that in 1 minute. I just want to ask, let me come to you, Yalim, because you mentioned on our pre-call, we were talking about trends, right? And I'm just going to get right at it. Like, let's get at agentic. But while you're answering the agentic trend right now, what it is that you're seeing, I'm going to ask you a corollary. Do we even know what to do with generative AI? And we're already on to the next topic. Like, just put that in context for us.
Yeah, I think the pace of the innovation happening in the AI space is pretty high. And that's the reason why we're having a lot of confusion sometimes. We think that we understand the concepts, but sometimes we don't, and we learn from each other as well. But if you take a look back to the conversational AI space, up until 2013, there was no AI, almost no AI in the conversational AI space. With the introduction of the BERT base of transformer models, getting into the NLU space, we started having those. 2013, 14, that's where we picked up that technology and started with our own NLU. And life was good up until the generative AI came into the place, right? So now, how are we going to leverage generative AI? So we started thinking about it, and we started augmenting our solutions with generative AI capabilities to make it, as Jim mentioned, smoother, more natural, more conversational, and the experience. And the end goal over there is improving the customer experience, actually. So at the end of the day, for any company, if you don't have a good customer experience, you're not going to be in this business for so long, right? You're going to go out of this. The competition will beat you and get your customers, your churn will go higher, and your retention will be going lower, and you're going to lose your business. So the customer experience is key to keep those customers on your side. And these tools, I call them tools. We're just doing developing tools for the companies, for enterprises to keep that customer experience at a high level. But the challenge is high, the expectations are high, so that's the reason why these technologies are extremely critical to get the customer experience at a very high level. So generative AI was a very important milestone, like 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, I first introduced with the ChatGPT, and we started playing with that. OpenAI's, Microsoft, Azure, and the others came in, then Amazon, Google, we started playing with those. We started talking about large language models, then we said, maybe not every time large language models is right. Let's talk about small language models with less parameters. So maybe not on cloud, maybe on-prem, so we're a financial institution, we cannot let our data exposed to external, to the public, so let's keep it on-prem. So all these conversations we started having, all these discussions we started having, and all of a sudden we said, okay, we have a lot of tools, but how are we gonna be able to deal with this? And then the agentic AI came into the picture. So agentic AI, what it presents is, first of all, automation. So one of the speakers, I think Gary or Jim mentioned that, automation is key. So at the end of the day, if you don't automate your processes, you're not going to get efficiency and productivity out of that. So you have to, that's a kind of an endless, pursuit of, that's an endless pursuit, I would say, for achieving higher levels of productivity and efficiency. So that is one part. And then that's also automation. The second thing is, so we're getting into the middle of the process so much. So how are we going to make these systems work in an autonomous way, right? Are they going to be able to work autonomously? So those agentic AI applications, actually, the agentic AI agents, absolutely. Yeah.
So when you say autonomously, what you do? Hang on one sec. We'll get you on.
Okay. All right. So when you say autonomously, okay, isn't that predictive AI? Okay, because one of my concerns is you take the human out of the decision making, and that's typically predictive AI. So that's really where you benefit on the automation.
Not necessarily predictive. So it's all about the goal that you're setting, the goal orientation. With the agentic AI, what while defining the agentic AI, what we're saying is the automation. First of all, it should automate it. The second one is autonomous, and the third one is the goal orientation. That goal orientation doesn't need to be predictive. So you can set the instructions for the agentic AI, and it doesn't need to be predictive. It doesn't need to foresee what's going to happen.
But generative creates no. Predictive makes a decision, right? So if you're predictive, you're making a decision for the human. So that's what my concern. So when at Air School, okay, we're using predictive AI.
Okay.
And the reason we're doing that is we want to make decisions and increase the efficiency of the process. So a human doesn't have to, I won't say interfere, we take the human out of the picture, okay? So the predictive one, that's the one that I see the most of the efficiency and productivity.
Can I chime in there real quick?
Please, yeah.
So, yes, the answer to that is yes, but there's two, I guess, components to that. Historical context. So the system, I'll just give you an example. If you have an AI platform and you have, for even number, 1 billion conversations, it learns off of those conversations. So it learns off of historical context. That's the first component of that. Second component of that is that you have workflows that are guided, although it's predictive. It understands that. You have pre-built workflows that are predetermined to get you to what you were saying, your end goal. So there's where the calculation of like the risk mitigation comes into that, in my opinion. So I think your concern is, okay, you take the human out of it, this thing is just going haywire. I had an incident and you have something to say, but let me finish my thought real quick. On the plane right over here, I use GPT for all the time, but now I fact check it all the time because it's wrong a lot, right? And so that's a Gen AI model. So, but where I'm going with this is you can still predefine your workflows. That's where the proprietary of what we do and probably what you do too comes into it. And that's where the trusted partnership comes into it. What's your goal as a company? It's predefined. So although it's goal-oriented and it's predictive, it's still guided in the terms of like where we're looking to get in terms of goal is predefined.
So the top two over there, generative, right? So the CIOs didn't ask for predictive. So my thought is that predictive is really where your efficiency and productivity.
Yeah, potentially, certainly.
They're not there yet. Those are five priorities.
Well, and I think we're painting, and that was kind of my point earlier about do we really even know what generative is at this point? We're asking this is the technology for technology's sake conversation that we constantly find ourselves. Let me go get agentic AI. Well, what are our use cases around generative right now? Are we comfortable with what we're doing on predictive? I mean, it's a great kind of microcosm of, I think, the broader challenge. This is just a swath of thousands of CIOs going, this is the thing that I have to do. Generative's on here because that's the word that shows up as much in their feed as any other methodology related. I mean, if we're being honest about it. And that was really kind of where we were going with the next chunk on this. I think you kind of gave a little bit of a good segue, if you will. So here's another set of data from CIO Magazine, and I'm going to come to Gary because he's got some great thoughts on this. This is from IDG, Foundry, CIO Magazine. At the end of the day, they run that. And this is a little bit about kind of what's happening out there. And this is what popped off the page to me, all right? 88% of CIOs are starting AI projects. Here's where the math goes backwards. 50% are getting tools in users' hands, but 42% are still identifying use cases. I mean, the entire thing is backwards, effectively, at the end of the day, right? So, Gary, you and I have had this conversation a bunch of times, and I think this is a great parallel to cloud 8 to 10 years ago, right? Corporate level edicts, CEO calls me, hey, my IT friend, go get some. I got to tell the board, I got to tell the investors, I got to have some AI, just like you had to have some cloud eight years ago. So the question here for Gary is, are we doomed to repeat, right? At the end of the day, tech for tech's sake here. And I think the advice portion for everybody in this room is, how do you control that narrative so it doesn't get out from underneath you as an IT leader?
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. Yeah, a couple things. So first, just to go back to the last slide, I know, but I want to reiterate that data was from the beginning of 2024. We didn't use the word agentic AI. Otherwise, it would have been on here, right? Anytime you read a statistic that says 2024, it takes them 18 months to get that ready, right? So you got to look at a time frame there. Yeah. But to what you said, yes, in some cases. I just presented to a board, and they said, look, we told our CIO to go buy AI. Lots of it. I said, does he buy it by the quart, the pound, the foot? He goes, what do you mean? I go, it's a technology. It's like HTML. Did you tell him to go buy COBOL? He goes, no, I don't know what that means. But you really don't know what AI means either, right? And AI is not a solution. It is a technology. okay? And I'm really surprised on that last page that it didn't say employee experience, okay? Because we suddenly forgot about the humans that we're trying to service, right? Yes, we all talk about customer experience because that's sellable, okay? You can measure that, but really it should be about employee experience, and that's why a lot of the math doesn't work here. They are going out. Remember, we gave people Excel with the idea that they were gonna do what with it? They were gonna figure it out. And 30 years later, they're using 3% of that tool. Well done, CIOs, well done, okay? That is a total waste of money, okay? Because one, we gave it to them and we didn't teach them how to use it, right? You know why? I think you said it. What was the business case that we gave them Excel? There was none. We went out and bought it. It was part of a productivity package. And I think that's what we're going to see right now. Now, we need to get in front of this. We need to turn it around. This is the time when IT has to align with the business. Now, I didn't say my background. My background prior was I worked for JP Morgan, I worked for Citigroup, I worked for 4 of the largest banks in the world for 25 years. We think different, right? And I hope everybody we think about what the end result is before we put something out to the users, right? I hope their percentage, and I hope my users back then, are greater than 3% using Excel. But I think this is really where the IT has to almost admit, how much do you really understand around the business? Right? And I think you have to go inside yourself and say, am I ready to support this business in a profitable ROI with this new technology called AI? Because I understand what skip generational wealth is. I understand what S corps do. Whatever your business is, could you run the business or could you run the IT group? Right? And I came from an environment where the guy who you all know, who ran that last bank of mine, JP Morgan, he made it very clear. If I walk into a room and I can identify business people and tech people, you all fail, you're all fired. Tech people, every acronym you use because you want to be smart, you got to make sure you teach the IT people, business people. Business people, you need to teach the IT people all those words you use. So I think until we get this straight, we are almost doomed of putting a technology out there that costs a lot of money. Second, I'm a CIO guy, so also, if you say you fully understand it, I'd love to see you present it to me, right? I'm on both sides. Okay, so I was a CIO as a buyer, and now I'm a CIO as a seller, right? And I clearly know, as a CIO for a buyer, I would probably understand this much of this technology. I only understand more of it because now I have to explain it to my peers. So I had to learn more of it. So I really do think we need to change the model, and I think that's what we talked about. We need to change the model here a little bit. We need to ask the right questions. You know, I always leave this with CIOs when I speak. Tell me what you don't know. Tell me what you don't know. Just ask your team, what don't we know? And I would love to hear that answer, right? And tell me when you have enough of that answer that you know 100%. And so I think that's the failure that we're going to see unless we right-size the problem and we get yes, we're still going to make the investments. Look, we sell AI too, right? We give it away in one product, right? We include it in another product. We're actually giving most of it away now.
Hey, easy.
Sorry. But we are giving it away across the platform for version 1. You know why? Because we knew you weren't going to know what to do with it. So isn't it better to figure it out on 0 time than it is to figure it out on X time? Whatever it is. So that was our theory. If we put it in the hands of people, they'll be curious. They'll get to all the compliance stuff. I know we're going to have that conversation, right? But at least if it's in their hands for free, right? At no cost, you'll experiment with it. Make people curious. I guarantee if you can put it in the hands of your users, they'll think of better business cases than you will.
We actually have a question over here. Go ahead, fire.
So you're basically telling me nothing's changed in 20 years.
No, well, no, I'm telling you that.
Except one thing. They know they want something, they're telling us the technology. For the last 20, 25 years, we've gone in, understood the process, optimized the process, and then found the right technology to automate it and enable.
This is
exactly they're telling us in technology.
I'm going back to what you said. So this is the cart leading the horse. See, you were told what technology to use. You made a decision whether it was Fortran or COBOL or whatever platform you use, right? But at the end of the day, you were told the solution before you were told the problem. Sure. And that's what you got to get in front of as CIOs, right? You got to almost, I'm going to say bad words, slow the train down a little, right? You got to slow the train down a little because, I don't know, everybody's measuring success. I'm like, success, you didn't even know the problem, right? But you already got success figures up there about it. So I think that's where we got to, as CIOs, we owe it to our businesses to understand this better and to sit back and actually internalize how much of this do we really know.
Let me add one thing that we kind of came up in our pre-call that was interesting. And we talk to CIOs all the time. And, you know, the role, you talked about the last 20 years. Like, typically, the line of business came to you to solve a problem. And ultimately, which, funny, thank you for the awesome segue. I'm going to get you for the 20, I promise you, afterwards. Like, ultimately, okay, the business that was using the technology that they asked you to deploy was ultimately responsible for the ROI on the investment that you made. You just had to keep the lights on, it needed to be deployed well, you needed to change management around it, but at the end of the day, they were using it or they weren't. Now something happened, by the way, cloud obviously, it was all about cloud, we ran that way, but something happened in between that one and this one, and it was COVID. And I talk to CIOs all the time who were like, man, I worked with the COO before COVID. I reported to the CFO before COVID. But there was a day during COVID where the CEO grabbed the CIO and said, what do I do? And now that's happening again because we already have that practice. But the problem with this one is it's just technology without an answer, right? So the line of business now has almost no responsibility, right, for how they're going to use AI. How do you drive an ROI is ultimately the question. And if I'm going to come back to these guys then, and anybody can jump on this, but let's talk a little bit about
the
that
only thing I would
point.
say what you just said is it's tiered.
Yeah,
okay. SMBs, that's the case.
Yeah.
For sure. Right. Go up the ladder. Law firms, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right. Healthcare and healthcare, it's not the case. The business is driving it with technology partners. Right. As you go up the line, when you get to the financial institutions, when you get to the large, when you get to those Fortune 100 and things like that, they have a different model on this. The business is responsible for ROI, and technology is just keeping the lights on when it comes to AI. They're buying it and keeping it on. They're worried about security and they're worried about compliance, but the business is responsible. So this is a multi-part question, depending on the segment and the size of the company, because that has really changed during the pandemic, right? The smaller companies kind of, the CIO, if you're a CIO for an SMB, you became God, right? You know everything. But as you go up the line, the partnerships between CIOs and business, the business is now responsible for this. So this is not one answer.
No, certainly not. But let's straw man for fun, all right? Because I saw chuckles when I made the you got asked to deploy AI and didn't get told how you were going to use it. Maybe you don't need to talk about your own business, but if you feel like that's true, you or a peer of yours is being asked to deploy AI in your business right now without necessarily being told how to use it, would you raise your hand? Are you okay with that right now? A couple of you, certainly. Maybe we're not necessarily willing to address it, but I get it. There's a couple of you in here. We definitely hear that. And I agree with you. Does anybody else, do you guys have an opinion on this? Like how in the products that you offer are you establishing this? Or better yet, let's morph it a little bit. Give us a use case where you've got demonstrable AI that you, or ROI that you can push in as an answer to the question of go get me some AI.
I can talk on make somebody a hero. If you work for a big company, and again, I'll talk about contact center because that's where I live right now, is that find somebody on the low end totem pole, and this is not a knock on anybody in the like I had a contact center, and this is a true story, and I think we're going to get to customer stories, but I'll go ahead and say it anyways. It's just that somebody that is bringing a disruptive technology into the organization, and every organization is very different. There's no one size fits all to this approach is going to work for this company, and so we're going to do it across the board. You have to identify a champion and an advocate for this AI who's going to be talking positively about your product, about your platform, about what you're going to do for the company for X, Y, and Z reasons, going back to the ROI. You have to define that. You have to define a success criteria. These are measurable outcomes. With AI in the contact center and reducing call volume, understanding use cases, understanding how to offset some of these things, very measurable versus what I used to do in the ERP space where it's like, hey, rip and replace your QuickBooks SAP with Oracle or NetSuite. Great. 6-month project. Tons of money. You guys understand. I'm sure half the room, if not everybody in the room, has done that before. This is so measurable. So you have to find somebody who cares enough to be speaking positively and selling this thing for you behind the scenes. And Scott, you asked a question before. How many of you What was the question you just asked again a minute ago? About...
Are you being asked to deliver AI without any kind of context on how to use it or what to accomplish?
How many of you feel pressure to have AI? Because if you don't have AI, you are falling behind. And if you all don't raise your hands, you're lying to yourselves, because this is the God's truth, right? You have to have some sort of AI to keep up with your competition, with your peers. I don't care if you like it, if you don't like it. I have my stance on it. I won't say it on the podcast. But with that being said, it's going in one direction. If you don't follow that direction, you will be left behind, and that's black and white. So that's what I'll say with that. You have to identify that early on in the conversation, and somebody who truly cares as an advocate. And that's how you not just win business. I'm in sales. Yeah, I'm trying to win business. My success is dependent on your success. If you're not successful as a company, I'm not successful and our business is not successful. I can't say that enough. Okay, so it's identifying that early, identifying use cases, success criteria, and plan of action.
Yalim, you want to add anything there?
Just one thing. I mean, maybe this is my personal opinion, but over the past 25, 30 years, trying to sell to enterprises, different technology stacks, I have never seen line of businesses taking this much role in the decision making. So I've been always talking to CTOs and their teams. I'm always talking to CIOs and their officers for data center projects, for CRM projects, for ERP projects, whatever. Okay. Here now, they have taken the lead to have this conversation with the vendors. I'm pretty sure you're experiencing this too, right? So I think what they need right now is because they don't know the technology. So once we have those conversations, the first few sessions, we go through the education piece. Okay, this is that, this is this, this is that, this is how that works. You guys already know that. And you have teams that are already. So what they need is actually a thought partner. So that's what I'm seeing. I mean, in this. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is what I'm. Did I make my point?
Sorry, those of you listening on headphones to this episode.
So yeah, that is what I'm seeing over the past. This is a change because AI is so sexy to everyone now. Everybody wants to learn it, and it's like it's at fingertips. They can play with ChatGPT, and they say they know about it, and they start talking about it. They hear it a lot. They on their LinkedIn feeds, on their Twitter feeds, or whatever on social media. They read a lot and they watch a lot. And that's the reason why they think that they can do it. Yes, they're driving the business value. I 100% agree with Gary about the business value. Yeah. But at the same time, they need you to make a well-educated decision, I would say.
But so, just to add to one thing is that it's also part of their business goals now, for the first time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now when they're being rated as heads of groups, heads of departments, how to keep headcount and how to increase customer experience, how to make the employees not quit, and that's now part of their goal. So as part of their goal, the business leaders have no choice to be part of this, because they're measured on something. And I agree with you said they need to lean on the trusted advisor.
Yes,
that's the CIO type, right? You're a trusted advisor because while your bonus is based on that, so is theirs. And so for the first time, you get a partner who's in the same room with you because for the first time, you're both motivated by the same challenge and the same incentive. And I think that's changed a little bit. They weren't measured on whether you got them the latest PC. They weren't measured on whether you upgraded to ERP. That wasn't on their goal. How do you use AI? How do you improve customer experience? How do you improve employee experience is on their goals, but it's on ours also. First time I think we're sharing.
So when you say it's on their agenda and your agenda, it's not use AI. It's basically how do you increase productivity. So that's how that's his.
No. So what he said was, it's not about using AI. It's how you increase productivity. That is exactly what it should be.
Great.
Okay. Unfortunately, it says, how have you deployed AI and what percentage of AI have you deployed in your department? And if it doesn't say 100%, you're not getting your bonus.
Yeah.
So what you said is perfect. It should be, how do you measure business value? Right? And it should be increasing business value by X, increasing employee value by X. That should be the goals.
So the people who are in those positions,
you guys help me.
the people in those positions, okay, don't deserve to be in those positions because it should be how you're increasing productivity.
I'm on your side of the fence. Come sell with us.
Yeah, I think, let me throw something on top. And this is just maybe a general question, and I would love for you guys to respond. It's not in our notes here, but it does bring up an interesting point. about the measure of productivity inside of a business, right? Which is, we've lived since, the days of factory shifts in this mode of, I have an 8-hour day and the person who works 12 is the person who's going to get ahead, regardless of how many widgets they actually produce. We now have, this challenge goes over into HR and businesses that are AI literate. What happens to a developer in your group who gets, 2 days worth of code done in 2.5 hours, and the other person's chopping wood all night long? Like, can they take the rest of the day off, or are we expecting, a full day to get 10 days worth of work done? Like, there's a whole paradigm challenge in there to start to think about when we're thinking about productivity that is way outside of the realm of just IT at the end of the day. Like, you guys have anything to add on to that? We could be on this one forever, so we probably put a lid on it after this, but comment on that?
I think you're correct. I think we have to change the model, right? We're all learning. That's the best part about this. We're all learning and learn with the business, right? We've invented titles, right? Now, who has a CDIO in their company? Right? Yeah, responsible for business transfer. It's probably an ex-CIO who figured out he has to get from the expense side of the house to the income side of the house, the revenue side of the house. Because, right? But that's the goal today, is we're all learning, right? And so the business is now hiring someone dedicated to making their bonus or their numbers better, right? And they're hiring a trusted advisor who was probably an ex-CIO to move over and do those things. And so we're seeing the model change and which I agree. We're seeing the model change on how we deploy, and we're seeing the model change on how we measure.
I think this is a pretty good corollary. I just want to throw this one up there. This slide was up here earlier, but I didn't point on the training upskilling comment. 51% saying they're training and upskilling employees on Gen AI. Let's talk about this AI literacy kind of conversation as a corollary to the statement about productivity, right? Because I think when you get to the employee experience, Gary, thing you were talking about, it's incumbent on the business, whether HR is driving it or whether IT is driving it, to make sure that, one, we get a good measure of productivity, but two, we don't allow, alone those who are doing work at home, figuring out how to write a good prompt, to succeed beyond others who maybe could with some training. Like, is AI literacy just a reasonable goal for this? Like, forget all these highfalutin products where we're going to drive all these costs out of the business. We have a lot of work to do to be able to get the business aligned. But if there's one thing to do today, is it just to start building a literacy program in pockets of the business, get some Gen AI in their hands, maybe do something around prompt writing? Like, do you think that's a reasonable kind of project for IT leaders to be thinking about? Comment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the starting point. AI literacy is number one. So you need to, as a corporation, not only the IT, but overall, since the legal piece is compliance piece, so everybody needs to get educated on the AI side. So I was talking to a friend of mine. He has a startup in Canada who's working on on-prem GRC solution, right? Not a cloud one. So what are the challenges that I asked him the question? What are the challenges he's seeing? The first thing is that if you take a look at the data governance, that's 70%. He says 70% on the other departments and 30% on the technology side in terms of effort that's put in to make it work. Whereas in the AI Act, after the EU AI Act, so that's the opposite. Like 70% on the technology side, 30% on the other stuff. Legal stuff and compliance stuff. So there's a lot of training to be done on the governance sides as well, but as well as identifying the right project, where to add value. We talked about productivity, efficiency, employee experience, customer experience, how to improve, where to improve. You got to start from somewhere, and in order to identify where to add value, you have to have educated people to identify those things. So otherwise, you're going to just go with the flow, and that's not going to get you where you want it to. Any
ads?
I just think, but change the way you train. Like, you can't go back to those 45-minute, 10-question cyber trainings that we're all used to, right? Micro-learning, micro-certification, right? That's where I see AI taking a good role as you're training people. What they say, when AI first came out at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a quote. It said, a car goes 1,000 miles an hour. We gave it to a 16-year-old with no license and no instruction book. right? And now that's what's coming back here now, is that, but I do think we have to use AI to train an AI, and it's all about micro-learning, and remember, most of us are writing code right now for Gen Zs, which we probably don't understand. They're our kids, right? We don't understand them at home, we don't understand them at work, right? But that's why we have to change that, and I'm glad that that's up there, because I think all this has to come together, but it has to be in a form that people can consume it, and it's not the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. I want to add something on that quote, though. I think it's probably more like there was a car that drove 1,000 miles an hour with no instructions that was unlocked, that your 16-year-old who doesn't know how to drive got in on their own.
No, we gave it to them.
Right.
No, we gave them the keys. Yeah, we gave them the keys at the beginning.
All right.
And expected an outcome.
Clearly, yeah. But it's going to happen in the businesses whether we're driving right or not at the end of the day. So let's do some, there was a request in our pre-show around some use cases. I'm just going to skip this slide. Forget the slide. I just had it up here for some fun. These guys are talking to customers all day. And we've been talking about ROI, decision-making, who owns it, what we were driving. We had some requests around, pharmaceutical and life sciences. We had some requests around small and mid-market businesses. Each of you just has an opportunity. Tell us a customer story and do it in the vein of the questioning we've already had, like who owned it, where did it get driven from, what was the outcome, was it demonstrable from an ROI perspective? Like, tell us something we can sink our teeth into. Doesn't need to be super long, but like situationalized for it. Yalim, I'm going to come to you first.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that because we just finished it. I mean, they completed the project. It's live now. It's a conversational AI project with PHP, an insurance company. And it was very successful. It went fast because the CTO ran it. So CTO had the business view, had the business partners in the team. And from start to the end, he was in every single call, and he was driving it. He was leading the teams, and we didn't have any problem. And in terms of backend integrations, we have gone through all these, I would say, complex problems we had. And having CTO there, understanding the problems, understanding the business value, what to create, eased our lives big time. So I would definitely, that was not an easy project. I mean, multilingual, multimodal, multi-channel. So a lot of things together. And generative AI, there was a RAG implementation as well. So generative AI was included in that. So that was a complex project. And with the CTO involved in it, driving it, it was super fast and super successful.
So two things, let me ask you three questions on that. It did what, to deliver what, and what was the expected ROI in the business? Just give me a quick sentence on each one.
Yeah, ROI is just completed it. So early to tell about the ROI piece, but what it did is, so first of all, they have 25,000 agents in the field that they need to assist. So the agents can access the knowledge base at any time they want and extract the information they want, or prompt some queries about their business results and everything, all these APIs results. And it should be in two different languages, Spanish and English. It should be available on web chat and also through mobile app. And it should be also via text and voice. So all these multimodal, multi-channel, multi-channel, multimodal infrastructure, it should be available. And we all delivered that. And that's, I would say, I'm just back to my first point, having the leadership from the technical side paid off at the end.
Okay. Jim, tell us one.
Can I bring up my notes? I'm just kidding. No, my numbers. So here's the deal. 208% ROI in 6 months. That's what I'll say. And I'll start by this. Somebody over in that corner, I think it was you, mentioned like streamlining operations. Well, there's not a single person in this room or a single company that we work for that is not measured on reducing costs. So I look at everything from how can we reduce costs. So in the contact center, or just in terms of volume, I look at, and over there, the health and life sciences use cases, any kind of scenario where there's high volume and high touch points, if you can offset that with self-service, essentially, with AI self-service, solve a real issue and lower the average handling time on those calls, lower the amount of calls coming in. Let's say your Talkdesk and you're picking up that voice, the voice bot's picking up that call, right? It's owning that for a certain dollar amount. We take a look at what they're paying per dollar. And I'll just give you, these are not real numbers, so don't hold me to it, but they're close numbers. Let's say 100,000 calls per month, right? And their containment rate was very low. And by containment rate, I mean calls that are going to agents. So they're not being contained in an IVR or via self-service. You can measure that, you can offset that, right? And you can find that dollar amount and reduce that based on the low-hanging fruit use cases. Booking an appointment, billing, asking a question about your account. You do data dips. We have plug and plays, we have pre-built integrations, APIs, all this other stuff that everybody else has, right? That you dive into that information, you extract it, and in real time, Gen AI or agentic AI, it doesn't matter, both in some cases, you're having real-time conversations, whether it be via chat, a voice, SMS, WhatsApp, and agents are not needed. And that's not a knock on agents. It's not saying, hey, we're going to reduce agents. You brought up a really great point, and I looked at that slide Scott sent over probably 5 times on the plane between my broken Wi-Fi and the kids screaming behind me, was that like employee experience was not mentioned on that slide, and that's such a lost art because if you have a model where you want to deliver AI and you have everything built out perfectly, hey, we have all this ROI, it's great, except for we're going to lose all of our employees because you don't matter.
Yeah.
Then that completely eliminates the entire issue because then you have a business. So to Gary's point is how do you let AI work with the humans and find ROI, and to somebody's point before, it's finding those use cases that get you there. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. I don't know how many folks in the room have AI implemented right now specifically for these use cases. Find those use cases, start saving costs, and drive operational efficiency. There's a lot of examples like that. And to your point before, Scott, 208% ROI in 6 months is pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah. And they based that on what? Was that improvement in handle time, hires they didn't make? I think we can immediately go to this, can we let go of people? But I mean, we're really thinking more along the lines of empowering their productivity. Like, what did they measure the ROI on?
It was actually, they were sending calls to a BPO. So this was a utilities.
So straight up, like minutes of use that were going outside to answer phone calls were not going outside.
The industry average, you pay a contact center rep, if you offshore, let's say $15, this is an average, onshore, $40. You can do simple math. Average handle time on a call in enterprise businesses is between 7 and 10 minutes. You can do simple math. Even if you're off a couple minutes, you will find ROI. How prescriptive you want to get with it, you drive down those costs. That's your entry-level AI. And at least in the contact center, anybody who's fielding calls and answering customer inquiries. Everybody in this room has had terrible experiences calling either their cell phone company, their bank, insurance. I was talking to somebody in the room before. So that's your at least entry level in terms of what I do. And then it's measured based on how quickly can we deploy.
Gary, a customer story.
So we covered ROI, but I think we talked about efficiency, and I think employee efficiency is probably over-missed. And not to, we can give you another ROI story, but that's a different story. But really think about this. How are we making people work more? We used to say smarter, not harder. Now we're saying intelligent, not smarter, right? How do we bring them up the scale? Think about this. We have people who are now looking at meetings and going, how many people have been in a meeting? There's 12 people in the meeting, just as a round number, and 9 don't talk. Okay, how inefficient is that? There's no ROI, but it's inefficient. How efficient is it that the 3 that do talk have the conversation and we send the 9 the notes? Okay, and they can read it later, right? Because they're only going to go and take notes themselves, and we know that AI takes better notes, unbiased. Right? So at the end of the day, you have to look at it from more than just ROI. Now you can turn that into ROI later, because maybe we don't have to hire as many PMs. Maybe down the road we can become a little bit more fine-tuned, but we're not really, I don't think the first step of AI is to eliminate humans. I think the first step of AI is how do we make the existing humans more efficient in what they do, and how do we get a better outcome from our clients? And I think so this whole thing about note-taking, what they're doing with meetings, the captions that you saw at the end here, the multilingual, right, things like that, I think they are really adding efficiency. So while we say ROI, we got to put right next to it the word efficiency, and the efficiency is an inward score, and the ROI is usually an external score, but you have to balance both.
Fit, you have a question over here? Wait, let me get a microphone to you, hang on.
Talking about case studies, I've got an awesome one. I work with a large healthcare organization that got probably 500 locations. There is money in insurance. I know we as users of the insurance don't think there is, but there is. If you're doing transplants or you're working with cancer. So Think about the large language models that these companies are able to build because they've been recording our voices and every time we call in for the past 10 years. So they can take action on that. What are they doing when it comes to where does the rubber meet the road? One of the organizations I work with, they're building a cancer center. They did not want to go with the big call center because there's 800 plus agents there. They want a more intimate type experience for the patients because it's real time. So, 5 of us in here, unfortunately, are stuck with cancer. And we all have different doctors, but we end up at the same building, same call center for appointments. I call in on a Monday, I receive my chemo on Thursday before. I have a cough, or I've got a fever, or I've got a rash. Someone else in this room, same thing, they call on Tuesday with the same problem, and they had received the same chemo on the same Thursday. 2 other people, same exact issue. This would have all been thrown in a folder that never would have been looked at. When you go to your doctor's appointment, oh, I see a fever, okay, cool. No, at the end of the week, the people, the managers, the doctors, the nurse practitioners can run these reports. Hey, 5 of the people, or 4 of the people that took this drug on last Thursday now have a fever, a rash, or whatever. You can take actionable items. Is there ROI on that? Maybe a life or 2. So think about what these organizations are doing. They're using that data properly now to save lives or to point out, hey, there's a problem with the drug. Was the drug administered incorrectly? Was the drug not refrigerated properly? It all ties in together.
Yeah.
So that's a great use case that I would use.
Great use case.
So, what you're talking about is adverse effects, right? The pharmacology part, which you know very well. So what is happening is usually the traditional way to do that is adverse effect happens. Doctors report to the pharmaceuticals to say, okay, this is what is happening. So they collect all the data. So what can happen now with AI is the decision making is better. So the people who are suffering from adverse effect, they are able to not stop the medication quickly. Earlier, it used to have multiple doses used to go, but now they can make decisions quickly of that and stop in kind of the reaction. Right. So that's a good use case.
And look at, but now you see they're talking to you. You can't believe the refrigeration. They're all time. You didn't have the information for it, just throwing it over from that.
The AI brings it together. So by the theoretically this adverse effects.
Let's pull that drug, let's pull that administrator, or put that in, put them in a refrigerator. Exactly.
Imagine 20 years back, I won't say the full name, it started with V. If AI was there, imagine thousands of that exist.
Yeah. Thank you. We have a question over here.
I want someone to sue.
Here, thank you.
Not so much a question, but kind of to play off of what these gentlemen here are talking about. Certainly cancer research is its own beast in its own, but most organizations have, decades worth of data, right? In the 80s, 90s, 2000s, so on and so forth. This data, 80% of a company's data lives in documents, PDFs, Excel files, Word documents, you name it. And it lives in the cloud, it lives on people's computers, it lives in handwritten notes. What AI can do beyond simply just transcribing and understanding and helping digest what these gentlemen are talking about, it can make this data accessible. AI has the capability, through intelligent processing capabilities, to access decades worth of data. Imagine that data at your fingertips and all the decisions that can be made. We combine that with agents that we're talking about, and you combine it with process automation that we're talking about. And to give you an example of a use case, something that my company is actually deploying today with an IT MSP. They're receiving 80,000 emails per month to one central support inbox. That's a lot for a human to manage. Okay, 80,000 emails. What we are doing today is what we have done, I should say, is we have implemented an email classification system to intercept, transcribe, and summarize these emails for this organization so that they can see all 80,000 emails in one dashboard with all their information, they can make their decisions, and then we combine it with agents to take action on those emails and complete those actions. So we're talking about ROI and end results, and we're talking about CX, we're talking about customer experience. What we did is we took this company from reviewing these emails 12 hours per day to 12 minutes. Okay, 12 hours to 12 minutes. So that right there should illustrate the power of the customer experience, the employee experience, right? It makes their lives easier, it helps make the company more efficient, it makes everybody look better, and to their point as well, we had a project champion within the organization that helped us elevate it through the CEO to get this project done. So just wanted to play off the point that you.
That's a great use case. Thank you. Thank you very much. So with just 3 or 4 minutes that we have left, because I knew we weren't going to get to everything and I didn't think it was enough slides, but thank you for your participation, and that's what kept this conversation brief. I just want to throw this out here, and I'll read these out, guys, so you get it from the same report. This is fairly recent. What worries IT decision makers about Gen AI in the workplace? Legal, loss of control, going rogue employees, lack of confidence in the results. That's number one. Second group, close to a quarter of IT decision makers are concerned that their organization might be moving too fast. Gary, your point. Let's take a pause, figure out what we're trying to do. This gets to your point about the data that's not in a spot where it's usable, right? Or, here's the other problem, that may contain, bad data, processes that somebody followed to get something done efficiently that weren't endorsed by the company. So only 34% of IT decision makers right now fear their organization has the right data and technology around that data to be able to support a broad-based AI strategy on that. So without unpacking all this, because we only have a couple of minutes and I had a few questions on there, let's just say this. This could be, there are concerns here about data hygiene, data protection, right? Undocumented processes that we're trying to get AI to document. Are they right? There's been plenty of use cases out there about that. Governance, security, all of those things. So without getting into all of it, I'm just going to make this simple and we'll round robin quick. If you happen to be someone in this room who finds themselves thinking about, hey, you have the use case, hey, you can demonstrate the ROI, I might just not have the foundation on which to build this handled yet, right? I'm going to ask each of these guys, just give us one piece of advice, like where to start, because it's coming at you, right? Particularly in this middle one. The employees are going there anyway, even if you don't have a strategy around it. So just a word of advice for somebody who's been through it.
I think the first thing is, look, be curious. Start working with it, right? You don't have to go from, what he said was, you don't have to go from solution to actually putting it in place, right? We can try. We can start looking at it. We can start adding more data as time goes on. But the problem with the data is, it was before our time some of this data was generated, and we don't know the quality of it or the context that it was created. And so I think one of the things to go through today is I have this change. I was a CISO also at one time, and I was a doctor, no. That was you come to me, walk in, it's no. I don't care if you're asking me to go to lunch, it's no, right? But today, ask how. Don't ask for permission. And I think that's how we work with our compliance people today. We walk in and we say, I'm not asking you for permission. I'm asking you, how do we deploy this? Because that forces them to actually put words on paper that they can type to, right? And not give you a complete no. And I think you need to change the model a little bit internally to figure out, how do I get through some of these fears? And again, did we ever have a 100% solution that we rolled out? But today, for some reason, unless I get the data 100% right, I'm afraid to roll it out. And I know internally we can do some things that we can't do externally, but I think you have to be curious. You have to try the cases out. You have to figure out what's working and what's not working. But it is about trial and experimentation. Don't be afraid of it.
Jim, word of advice.
Yeah, kind of almost to pawn off what you said, find somebody who's actually curious about your business. Find somebody who understands your business. Find somebody who cares. AI is in every conversation across the board right now. There's a lot of fugazis out there, okay? There's a lot of people who don't really care, just get you in the door and ask about the business, ask about the financials, ask about the health of the company, ask about their personal credentials, ask why they care. If you find that person and why I'm so passionate, but what I do is I don't have to do what I do. I can go back to doing whatever I want to do. I love this space because I care about the health of the businesses I work with, because their success is our success. And there's a lot of people who don't think like that. So find that trusted advisor within that company, do your research, and find your match made in heaven.
Got it. Yalim?
Yeah, the first thing is identifying it. So you might come up with a large process, and transforming that process with AI to something else might take forever. So decompose that process, split it into a digestible piece, and start with that. And again, I will reiterate that one. I strongly believe in that. Introduce yourself as a thought partner, not a counterpart to the line of business, but a thought partner to the line of business. They need you guys. So And that competence is going to be built on your end, not their end. They know their business and you know the technology piece. And you're going to grow this competence and help them on the transformation. Yeah.
Well, thank you all. Before we go, any parting questions from the group at this point? I know this could go on all night. This is a hot topic, but we are constrained by time. So one last round. Anybody have anything else before we go? Well, I want to thank you all for the spirited conversation. Give yourselves a round of applause. I'd love to thank SIM, New Jersey, obviously. Thank you all for inviting us in here tonight. For those of you who aren't members and you find this interesting, please find somebody who can get you involved, in the organization while we're here. Love to thank the panel. Thank you guys. We appreciate that as we go. And finally, as has been the odd part of this project, doing this in public, we'd like to thank the listeners at home, on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube. Awesome to have you with us, and we will catch you soon on another episode of the Bridgecast. Thank you very much. Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly. We'd also like to say one more time that we're appreciative of Bridgepoint Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation, or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepoint, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out bridgepointtechnologies.com. Don't forget the E on Bridgepoint, or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at bpt3.net. Also take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It helps give us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I'm Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there in business and in life. Do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.